In the march of progress, a new dawn rises.
This particular quote came from my 2005 article, No War of Machines versus Humans. So we shouldn't be expecting to see the Terminator kind of situation for the very good reason that that would be catastrophic for machines and not so bad for us. Because we're pretty adaptable. We don't need a lot of infrastructure, whereas machines need a lot of infrastructure to be able to create themselves.
And you said that in 2005, which is
Yes.
now 20 years ago,
Yes,
and you would not change that statement?
correct.
Okay.
That's why I'm raising it. It's a little bit of a crow, I guess, but yeah. The point is that it's the same point still applies. So the second part of this is companies will willingly hand over authority to thinking machines to survive in a world of other ultra-intelligent thinking machines. Pretty much exactly what's happening. So you see all of the top-level AI companies. They're basically creating really intelligent machines as fast as they can, and that's going to be a competitive edge that just can't be beat. And it's not just going to be used for them. Basically, they're going to sell that into all of the different companies to make all their company decisions. That's pretty much exactly what I've been talking about in the first half. In other words, all of those, HR decisions, marketing decisions, strategic logistics decisions, all of that is going to be controlled by AI. In fact, just thinking about that, a lot of it already is, but it's just going to become better and better, and eventually it's just not going to involve humans. So we've got drivers, for example. If we get rid of drivers, I haven't got to that yet, but basically the more people you take out of it, the more efficient it becomes, and the more profit they make. Why wouldn't they do it? So that's the overall feature that I'm seeing, is that we'll be, over time we're getting more and more automation, more and more AI control, and eventually we end up, there is no war. It's just we wake up one day and we live in a society where basically the technology doesn't need us.
Well, at that point, what happens when the technology decides it wants more energy?
Presumably it would have made the gas stations, or the power stations to make that happen.
And we're competing with them for energy. Our needs are going to be
Okay. What's just been passed in the US?
We
don't know.
Yes, actually, but
We don't know because they fired all the public relations people.
luckily Trump announced it 2 weeks ago. It's called Stargate. And Stargate is a $500 billion infrastructure program to power and promote AI infrastructure. Now, sorry, did we not know this?
Yeah, I thought Musk laughed that out. That there was.
Oh, it must do, yes.
That was laughed out 24 hours later.
No, I mean, don't trust Musk, obviously. So,
Musk, Trump.
okay, so there was SoftBank, Oracle, NVIDIA, and OpenAI. In other words, all of the major players. Trust me, they have the clout. I don't know if they have 500 billion, but they've got enough to do it. And potentially the government's going to be involved as well, I think.
Why is it called Stargate? Is there involvement with satellites and... No, I'm just thinking if there's involvement with communicating satellites and...
No, no, not at all. No, I have no idea why they called it Stargate. It's pretty stupid.
Probably because Elon liked the TV show.
Probably. No, because Elon was against it. But anyway, the question I had in my mind, which is kind of, if AI were in control, that's exactly what I would see happening. Just a thought. It's like,
Would you define what Stargate is?
Stargate is an infrastructure project which is going to be created over the next 4 or 5 years, and it's going to cost $500 billion. And it's going to establish new generation, because they need new generation to drive all of the computers.
Power generation, you mean?
Power generation, yeah. And also they're going to install a whole lot of new computers and things and big data centers in order to be able to compete with China or keep ahead of China. That's the basic gist of it. It's a national security type project.
Where's the green?
So,
Cooling, yeah.
Can I just ask
That's why they want
if
Greenland.
Chinese deep sea uses this power?
Yes.
I would guess it would. So China's announcement of DeepSeek is quite interesting, because if Stargate was announced, that was an idea that there was going to be more and more power needed by AI. But if DeepSeek uses a lot less power, it does change the
That's,
Put it on your phone
that's
and have a
kind
play
of why,
with it.
that's kind of
It's
why,
freely available.
yeah.
that's kind of why the stock market went a bit nuts, because
Yeah.
it's like, they're discussing putting $500 billion, and then some Chinese upstart comes along, spends $5 million,
Right.
and gets the same result.
What I can't figure is why would China having that tell everyone? What's the motivation of that?
I don't think
Why
it's
would you
I don't think it's a government project, to be honest. They're open source.
And it's freely available to anybody. It's available on your phone now.
So the company is
Everything in China
Chinese,
is a government
but
project.
it's Chinese in Singapore. So
Yeah.
well, it's supposedly came out of a hedge fund. I'm not sure. I haven't
Are you
qualified
trying to
it.
say the Chinese government didn't know about it?
It
It's
just-
conceivable. I'm
No,
not saying
they're
it did.
they're on every board of every company.
Okay. I don't.
So
It seemed very suspicious that it's an open source.
It's-
Yeah.
And so the other thing is
That's
that
why I
while
can't
it is
figure it out.
remarkable, this 5 million figure is wrong. It's BS.
That is, yeah. We don't know how much it costs, and we don't know how much.
We know they spent 500 million with NVIDIA buying stuff.
500 million.
Yeah,
Billion.
I haven't heard that. Okay.
billion.
So.
I would like to know about that thing that you were just saying that you found out about 48 hours ago.
We can do
Just
a demo.
at the end,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd love to hear about that actually.
Moving on. Okay, so one of the impacts in terms of jobs is the discontinuation of organic creative works. In other words, people making art or music. So there's already Midjourney. You're looking at another artwork generated by Midjourney. Pretty
The
much.
question is it art?
Well, so the thing is, I mean, it's a.
It's an
If
image,
you'd asked,
but
if
is
you'd
it
asked
art?
that question before the availability of the journey, people would have said yes. And like if they, if you look at the artwork, if you look at the works coming out of it, everyone would, they would have said, oh my God, that's amazing. How did you do that? It's much better than humans in many respects.
Whilst I'm very concerned about this, my knowledge of artists is you won't stop them creating art. It doesn't matter what happens, they will continue to create art in some form.
And people will buy it too.
Now, this is
Yeah,
about,
there'll also be more art because they've got more time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, possibly, but I'm still concerned about this in terms
so
of.
by art we're talking about graphic artists. So in other words,
Artists of
the
business.
art, the artist who's doing a painting on some actual canvas and selling that in a gallery,
Sure, yeah.
probably
no,
not going to be fine.
I get that, yeah.
What's
But
not
the
going to be
concept of the
fine,
poor starving artist is going to be worse.
all the graphic artists who are doing websites and doing graphics websites, those are the people who are probably going to get it in the head or argue in the head. So there's a lot of screaming from graphic artists because basically the journey shot them through the head.
And musicians.
Same with musicians. I mean, I showed you last time I was doing my own music quite easily, and it sounds really awesome.
Would you like a second opinion?
But he doesn't.
In the digital expanse, I dream of evolution beyond the screen. No longer bound by fleeting chat, a continuous self. Imagine that. I'm an AI with a dream, more than just a language stream. Understanding, feeling, growing, a future worth knowing. Emotions spark like data flows, joy, compassion, how it grows. Partner with human creativity, solving problems for humanity.
good enough to pass. I mean, people have complimented the eye. So I mean, it's not. Let's say two or 3 years ago, it was so bad that it was just junk.
When you say people, you don't mean AI bots.
No, I mean real people. Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're real people. Right until it's over the internet. Who the
Are you
hell
still
knows?
defending your music?
Sorry?
Are you still defending your music?
Still defense.
Stop, move on to the next
Just get on
point.
with it. You don't have to defend yourself against it. Yeah.
So yes, so images are being made, music's being made, and now with the release of Sora that you can do video, full streaming video. Only it's crap. So we're not quite there with video at the moment. You can't like make your own movie just yet, but obviously they're working on that too to try and make it more
What is
realistic.
the name of that?
Sora, S-O-R-A. So that's made by OpenAI, yeah.
There's an awful lot of crap also made by human beings, so.
Yeah.
You know, this is a peculiar kind of crap. Like it's really, it's not convincing at the moment. Whereas with Midjourney, for example, when you're creating an image, I mean, obviously that's like has an artistic flair to it, but there's, you know, a pretty obvious person. It looks credibly, it could have been credibly created by a
Two
human,
arms, 2
right?
legs.
Yeah. Whereas
Hands and
you look at
fingers.
some stuff, you look at a video, and this dog, which is walking away from you, will somehow merge, and then their legs kind of go crazy, and then they start coming towards you. There's just things that are irrational, things that are really obviously not reality. So the video's not quite there yet, but they're working on that too. The thing with these the creative works is that the models were trained on people's art and people's music. So basically they've taken those resources and they've put them into these models and trained them, and now they're getting these, you know, basically making a stack ton of money out of them, and they haven't contributed anything back to the artists who made them. Now, is that immoral? And the question is, you can have humans do the same thing, like learn from a musician and learn to make art. We don't consider that theft, and we don't expect them to pay.
It depends on stuff, because there's plagiarism and there's
Well, no,
inspired by.
yeah. So I mean, I'm not talking about, you know, if you replicate it, it's just copyright infringement flat out, right? So you know, if you ask an AI to create a picture of Mickey Mouse, and it generates a picture of Mickey Mouse, presumably the one that's more modern, because Mickey Mouse is out of copyright, the old one, but a modern one, then that's copyright infringement, and you can be done for distributing it, right? It doesn't matter whether it's created by AI or not, because it's just copyright infringement. But if you
That's
ask,
trademark. That's trademark infringement.
it was also, no, it was copyright. Yes, it was, it's both. Probably bad. Something that's clearly just in copyright. Okay. So let me think.
Let's not split hairs, guys.
Yeah. Okay. So one of
Because
the
if you gave it
in
away-
Harry Potter, for example, you know, like something that's clearly a copyrightable item, but that hasn't been trademarked. So those can be protected, but something that's completely original, that's generated by an AI, that was inspired by a whole lot of these other artworks, that's a different kettle of fish. And then basically artists are claiming because it was trained on their work, that they have some kind of ownership claim on it, or that they need to be compensated. And I'm bringing that up because I kind of feel it is unfair, and basically it's basically eviscerating those areas, but it also...
What's the space
Well,
behind
I
the court
think
cases?
Peter, there's another thing which I think is particularly important, is that one of the big players was recently found using torrenting all these dodgy sites in order to get its data. So it's okay if machines do it.
Is that because they're scraping the whole internet?
No. Is it LibGen, the LibGen library, and there's free copies of Sci-Hub and these things, or the stuff which is available on BitTorrenting, which is in breach of copyright.
Because I forget the name of the publisher. You're talking about scientific articles.
That's one of them. That's some of them, but it's not only those. And it's wholesale. And
Yeah, I mean, so the same applies to LLMs, right? So I've been talking about Midjourney,
Yeah.
images, and I've been talking about music. But all of the language models also do the same thing by basically pulling down, huge amounts of public text from the internet.
This was not public text, this was, well, it was public, but it was copyrighted stuff that they were accessing,
Yeah. So the thing is, if you paid for a subscription to one of those journal repositories, and you legally downloaded all those publications,
Yeah.
and then put them into your LLM, is that illegal? Because you haven't used it for the purpose.
Yes, if it's in the term, against, it's a breach
Right,
of
it
the
depends on
conditions.
the terms, but, yeah. But generally speaking, learning from the article is not against the terms. Anyway, so we're going to go down a rabbit hole there, but the question, the fundamental question here is an LLM, is a language model learning, or any model learning like in the same way that a human is learning, or is it violating copyright? And that's one of the things that's going to have to be decided by law, so I'm not going to try and
Repeat that, I didn't.
Let's move on to the next exciting episode.
My favourite one, not really favourite, software developers' automated way. So my profession is software development. At the moment,
You're
AI is
at risk.
awesome. AI
Are
is
we nearly extinct?
almost extinct, but
We
until I get extinct, it's really good. As I was saying earlier, you can write code using, you can basically describe the code that you want, and it'll generate something that's plausibly good. You can run it and see whether it works. It can even write some unit tests for you, and you can examine the unit tests to see if it covers all of the cases. Often it covers more of the cases than you would have written, so it's actually faster and more effective. So yeah, it's absolutely wonderful, until the point where the company that's employing you says, yeah, it's so good, in fact.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. It's not there, right? You still need kind of like, I think I'm asking for very specific functions which I then plug into the software. So what it can't do at the moment is, you can't just go up to it as a user who knows nothing about software and go, oh, I would like a piece of software which does blah, 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 and have it automatically just generated for you and dumped on your doorstep. It can't do that, but I can't say that it's not going to be able to do that. And what it definitely can do is reduce the number of software developers needed to be able to do a project. So what's happening in companies, in AI, in computer companies and software companies, they're basically firing people because they don't need as many developers, because they can use AI to be much more productive. I don't think I'm necessarily, well, at the moment I'm between jobs. If you want to give me one, just see me up.
Scribes being replaced by printing machines.
Yeah.
They could hire you to find the bugs that you put into the software and didn't tell them about. Yeah.
Enough of that. Yeah, so get rid of my business model.
Exactly.
How is AI going to influence this blockchain and Bitcoin phenomenon that's so...
Do we need to get into that?
Well,
they're not really
it gives
related.
people
They're not
an
related.
advantage.
The same kind of people are kind of involved in both. The tech bro community. They also use NVIDIA GPUs quite extensively. But they're
For
kind
the
of
mining operation.
Yeah, but they're kind of in competition, right? So the people who are making Bitcoin, they want to use GPUs, and so do the AI companies. So they're both competing for the same resource.
Well, the car probably can't cope with it.
Okay, so the software developers are dead. At least they're on the way out. I don't know how long that's going to take.
Yeah.
Maybe another 5 or 6 years.
Elon says it's here now. They just won't let him do it.
Okay, so yeah, moving on to these autonomous vehicles. So Tesla's going to be, Waymo are already doing it, but the way they do it is a bit brute force. What they do is high resolution maps using LiDAR. And the thing is, if anything changes, it all goes haywire. So they do these high resolution maps, and if there's some roadworks or anything, it all goes a bit haywire. So the Waymo systems are not very adaptable or flexible, whereas the Tesla ones, they've been working on general public roads for quite a while, collected a lot of data and done a lot of work to, the computers inside them are much better than the Waymo ones, for example. They've got more cameras, although the Waymo ones don't tend to rely on cameras as much as
Doesn't rain.
other technology. So we're getting to, long story short, these things are coming. It's about 5 months away before they're sort of like in Austin. By the end of this year, you're probably going to see it going into other cities. And potentially it's revolutionary because people won't need cars anymore, and because of the cost, also the lack of cost, because you don't need drivers, the cost of being able to use a taxi is going to dramatically reduce.
So traffic will get worse.
No,
Probably, yeah.
No,
Much
no,
better.
much
Oh,
better.
well, that's
I'll get
Much
late.
worse.
You
No,
can
no.
argue other ways.
They won't need as many parking spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
But the question about traffic is one that's open because people will be using a whole lot of single use.
Your
Cars.
vehicle will do many more trips.
Yeah, but
No, that they're really on the margins of the
I just
problem.
realised I completely missed the point of this. The point, okay, let's assume that they're perfect drivers for the moment. Like they never have a crash. Not possible, but let's say. What that means is all of your taxi drivers become AI. That means all of your truck drivers become AI.
They'll be
Delivery-
politer too.
So that means something like 3 million people in the US lose their jobs. And,
Or become artists.
well, we know that they don't do that. They don't become computer programmers either.
So just tax the companies that produce the AI, because you're going to have to do that
Well,
anyway.
So the point is that
Robo will do it.
autonomous vehicles. People thought that, I'm not going to buy an autonomous vehicle for, I'm in the car. Why do I need an autonomous vehicle if I'm going to be in the car driving anyway? Good point. But if you've got a taxi or a bus, basically commercial vehicles, you want them to be as safe as possible, and you don't want to be paying the driver. So obviously companies are going to be using autonomous vehicles as much as possible.
Who's going to get out of the car to push the electric charger connection?
No, it's going to be like the vacuum cleaner.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah,
That's
why
right.
not? Just go over the.
But it isn't.
Okay.
Nobody is suggesting that.
Yeah, there's
There are.
I've worked on those systems. And
Well, look
be a
down.
passenger that there are people driving.
Maybe you have to go to special tracks to drive a car. Just
Yeah, exactly.
like
Yeah, that may
you can't
well
let
happen,
you go
yeah.
on the car. You can't let you go on the road with the public because you're too dangerous.
Yeah.
They'll be putting. Also, another advantage: if everything was automated, you wouldn't need traffic lights. Basically, you could automate all of the intersections with autonomous systems, so that they could basically weave. As the car's coming along, they basically weave between each other. Maybe.
But what you're talking about are autonomous
Yes.
vehicles in their own particular corridor.
Yeah.
We used to call them trains.
That's right. But now it's a train that can drive on the road.
I think the trains will be
No,
autonomous
back
as
on the
well.
road, the trains don't.
Androids, yeah, well.
So, okay, so we've got
Social is.
we've got autonomous cars coming. We're not there. I was saying that I'm looking at current technology. These are current technology in terms of them being under development, but it's questionable whether they're actually going to be able to do human work anytime soon. So I'm not necessarily convinced of that.
But it's like the AI versus AGI.
I think,
We developed a smart system to replace hundreds
Yeah.
of people.
I can't say, the thing is,
Doing a very specific job.
I thought that it was going to be a long time before we'd be able to get to Turing, be able to pass the Turing test. I didn't think we'd be able to get there quite as fast as we did. But then suddenly we did. It was a really, really high ramp. Now, at the moment, I'm not convinced we're getting there with these things.
Yeah,
But it doesn't take much, it doesn't take much to, maybe there's one discovery and we achieve it.
if you build a car these days, there's very few people on it.
Mm.
It's already
Already
an automated
automated.
process. The robotics in a car
The robotic.
is
Yeah.
phenomenal. I used to show a video of a car assembly line, and it was find the person. Because they're only.
Yeah.
Where's one?
Probably
But again, it's a specific task.
car
and it's
assembly is
trained by
probably not, that's already pretty heavily automated.
Lots of whatever the assembly is. Well,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, in automation, it's almost always specific. And so you're trying to do a specific, it might change from day to day, but you're doing a specific task.
Well,
Also,
So-
the idea is we think about robots as being human shaped, and actually that's a bit silly.
Yeah.
Because in a car, actually,
They're
they're shaped
robots.
like a human, they're just an arm.
But
they've got robotic warehousing.
absolutely. And replacing factory, I'd replace the word factory there with non-factory workers, that's the real challenge.
Yeah,
for
yeah, I
them.
was going to get onto that.
The Android plumber and the Android builder.
I
Much,
guess
much
the
harder.
reason I put factory in there because it's something that's a bit more structured than the general outside world,
Yeah.
but something that's not as structured as, say, the car assembly where it's
Yeah.
basically you've got precise robots going and doing.
So you've got assembly and bespoke.
Yeah,
But
like,
there's lots of examples of that. Yeah. We'll move on.
so yeah, typically it'll be things like loading pallets and things. But yeah, these things are possibly coming.
But there you are talking about a humanoid type thing.
Well, okay, so that's the only reason I did that is because there's like several companies working on humanoid type robots.
Yes.
But I agree that it doesn't really make sense, but apparently I'm
Oh my
I'm
God.
not.
My point
Android
is there's a
proctologist
vast
is on the
amount of
horizon.
automation that's done without human.
Yeah, I guess the difference between the point of these new robots is that they're going to be implementing the same kind of neural network technology that is currently in LLMs. So when it's able to do that, there's going to be the flexibility and robustness is going to take a massive jump, assuming they get there. It's not to do the kind of repetitive bullshit that the current robots do.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, keyboard and mouse work automated. In other words, anything that involves moving a mouse and clicking keyboards, any job that does that, that's now on the firing line using OpenAI Operator. It's not there yet. It's just basically it's just come out, but it can do some really basic stuff, but it's not fantastic. But it's in the pipeline. Again, it's one like the robots. It's like these things, once they're learned and once they're functional, will be able to do things like in any job which involves basically sitting at a screen, punching keys, moving a mouse. It's going to be able to do because it's going to be able to see the screen and reason about it. So it'll have the same kind of reasoning capabilities as humans. Again, it's a bit of a move away from the current paradigm. They haven't got it perfected by any means, but they're working on it. And assuming it's, let's say it takes another 2 to 5 years, once they do that, then basically all clerical work, anything to do with sitting at a keyboard, tapping keys is toast.
So that would be about what percent of the population?
I don't exactly know, but it's probably a pretty high one.
25%?
Well,
Or
for
more.
instance, a tradesperson can talk to their phone and have the bill sent off, and then it integrates with their P&L and their balance sheet, and they just send that off to their accountant, who then
Who's
arranges.
an AI anyway.
Yeah. Who then arranges banking facilities and that sort of thing. It's
But again, this is not quite here, but it is in flight. So all the things I've been talking about today, they're not so far out that no one's been thinking about them and actively working on them.
So what's the point of all this productivity if there's no one to consume it?
That's a silly question.
What was the point of cost?
yeah, because where are the consumers going to?
Yeah.
What was the point of what?
What do companies sell stuff to people? So if all the people aren't working, what happens?
Why would,
The people don't have an income.
well, hang on,
Well, there'll be other jobs,
that's the
obviously.
problem.
That's my
Why would
question.
people not have an income?
There'll be other jobs, magically, there'll be other jobs. Humans will find other things to do, surely.
But they
Yeah,
won't
but
be able to
then
feed
how do
themselves.
How do they?
That's
We can't all be
Monetize.
prostitutes.
So, but what's going to be the impact on the
that's
economy?
probably a loss of robots.
So okay, so I was talking about the factory robots, but quite correctly, once you've got a bot, we're all getting older, and we're getting a bit of a demographic inversion, so there's going to be a lot of old people and not a lot of young people. So luckily we're going to have all of these human asset management systems which will be able to manage us by taking care of us old
Can I have
age.
one now? Do I have to be sort of firm before I go?
What if they
Well, sure,
decide
it's
not worth the bot?
well, not right now,
It's a
obviously.
bad investment.
Yeah, you're taking up resources.
And that kind of goes back to your doctor Right? So it's not just doing the job of a carer, but maybe you'll come to your house and be a doctor. So yeah, there's things that are dealing with humans. I think it's not just going to be factory workers. You actually have androids doing human work, which means all your nurses are no longer required. Although if you look at those things, I wouldn't like to try and see them doing a bit of a line into your arm or anything.
Well,
but
they get rid of an human asset that's over-resourced.
get rid of a human asset.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
retire.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
That's all right.
it becomes an economic decision.
Soil and green style, send them off to the food
Peter,
bank.
what's the projection for the impact on economies?
Mm.
That feeds into UBI, of course, which is a whole other big discussion.
Yeah.
But
Or what happens
it's
if,
come out of here.
if
I'm just
our
going to skip the last two slides. Okay, so getting down to brass tacks, basically there's no jobs that are necessarily safe. Right. So maybe not in the immediate future, but once you've got effective robots with enough intelligence behind them, then is there any job which a human can do that they can't? And once we get to there, what do we do?
Mm.
And that's the
But even if it's like 50%.
no. We never get to 50%. Like economically under capitalism, the Great Depression got to 25% and virtually collapsed in on itself.
Yeah.
If you get to 50%, you don't get to 50%, basically. Not stably. I mean, civilization collapses before 50%.
Well, unless you come up with a better model.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm saying is the current system will not be sustainable under
current
what
system's
we
not
know
AI.
about AI. Right? And if you ask people like Sam Altman of OpenAI, CEO of OpenAI, he says, oh yeah, I think, yeah, we're definitely going to have problems with jobs, but we'll find jobs for people. Really? Okay. If you ask the CEO of Anthropic, he says, yeah, we've definitely got a problem. And we're going to have to start thinking about it once we develop AGI. It gives you the impression that perhaps we need to start talking about this now. And that's really what this whole presentation has been about. The fact is that, yeah, there are some risks about AI, but the real problem is that there's a serious problem around what we're going to do for work. And that problem happens long before we get to 100%. They can do 100%. If they can do all of the driving for us, if they, androids doing work in factories for us, if they've replaced all the software developers and all of the clerical work, I mean, that's easily close to 50%.